So they passed a law in California, and they're supposed to raise the minimum wage to $20. Except Panera Bread has a carve-out, meaning they don't have to abide by this law.
Oh, thank God.
And the reason is the guy who owns Panera Bread, or all these franchises, went to high school with the governor and is a big donor.
I like him. He's kind of, I'll be Bill Maher. I like him. He's kind of a criminal and a scumbag, and I think that's great. But when Trump does it, I get real upset.
Yep. So billionaire Greg Flynn, who made his fortune running one of the world's largest restaurant franchise operations, is getting a new boost from sourdough loaves. And so now here's the cutout. If you have a fast food restaurant, but you also make bread,
yeah, well, there's no markup
then
on
you
bread.
don't have to pay your workers a minimum wage.
No.
That's what this is.
There's a
Watch
bread.
this. Watch this. That's because a California law that's about to raise the state minimum wage at fast food spots to $20 an hour from $16 offers an unusual exemption for chains that bake bread and sell it as a standalone item.
It doesn't even make sense from an economic, like, hey, some of these restaurants can't afford to pay this. Well, then you give that break to the ones that have to bring bread in that don't make it on if they're making it on premises, that's lowering the cost of their shit way more than if they have a bread supplier. Bread is not expensive to make. So
Newsom pushed for that break.
Oh, good.
According to people familiar with the matter. Among the main beneficiaries is this guy Flynn, a longtime Newsom donor whose California holdings include 24 Panera Bread locations. The specificity of this exemption has puzzled observers for months.
Did it?
Really?
It's like when he was missing after his booster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, they made me take that video down. Especially after the governor told reporters last year that it came about as part of the sausage making of politics.
Yeah, well, as you know, he's
ironically, Kurt, sausage makers not exempt from this law. In response to detailed questions, Newsom's office said that the wage law was the result of countless hours of negotiations with dozens of stakeholders.
Fascists.
Over 2 years, and will make a real difference for hundreds of thousands of Californians. Flynn, who has been involved in business dealings with Newsom, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. In addition to contributing to his campaigns, said in a brief conversation that he didn't play a role in the crafting of the bread exemption.
He didn't have to.
Of course.
The stakeholder capitalism. That's what I told you. That is fascism. That means fascism.
Flynn emerged as a prominent critic of the fast food bill known as the FAST Act. In a 2022 opinion piece in Capital Weekly, a publication covering California politics. Really? I've never heard of it. Anybody ever hear of Capital Weekly? Misha?
Nope.
Steph, you ever heard of it?
It's not for people like
I do a political show. I've never heard of it. I live in California.
For you.
It's not for me. It's for the... He said it would all but kill the franchising business model in the state. I bet it wouldn't.
Shut the fuck up. Since I was a kid, they've been saying this bullshit.
Every time that you raise the minimum wage, they say this is going to kill. Remember when they raise it to $15 in Seattle or something? They go, oh, that's it. They're all going to leave.
Jimmy, I remember.
Turns out people still buy Whoppers and Big Macs and Taco Bell in Seattle.
I remember when I was a kid and they raised it to $6, the minimum wage at like Taco Bell. And they said, oh, you can't raise the minimum wage because then it'll kill. And amazingly, no, it got bigger than ever. In fact, they got so powerful they can have the governor make laws for them.
Yep, that's right. Behind closed doors, he urged the governor's top aides to reconsider whether fast casual chains such as Panera should be classified as fast food, according to people familiar with the discussion who asked not to be named because of the topic.
Fast casual?
Fast casual.
I like fast formal food.
I like fast formal.
I get dressed
up. The plan wasn't adopted. The Service Employees International Union, a labor group that was the driving force behind the bill, decided to accept a narrow carve-out as the talks progressed. One that would only apply to restaurants operating bakeries. Why?
That have P in the title.
Why would you...
and end in an A.
Why would you cut out anybody? That position was adopted as a means of winning the governor's support. So what the union was told is that the governor will only support this legislation if you cut out people who have bakeries in their restaurants. That's what this tells
And just
me.
because for this one guy, by the way, I promise it's not for other restaurants with bakeries.
The rationale was the governor's longstanding relationship with a Panera franchisee, the person said. While Panera locations and a handful of other eateries get a break on wages, so now if you work for Panera, wouldn't you quit your job and go work for Taco Bell or McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or KFC or any other fast food place? Wouldn't you immediately quit your job at Panera and go work somewhere else because you're going to make more money?
Okay, according to, I'm looking at Yahoo Finance, it says Panera franchise Billionaire will comply with California minimum wage law after unusual bread baking exemption prompts absurd outcry from Gavin Newsom's office.
Oh, that's what.
This is March 6, 2024, according to that.
Believe me, the outcry didn't come from Gavin Newsom.
Kidding.
It's awesome. The reason why you got this cut out was because of Gavin Newsom's office. McDonald's Corp franchisees have estimated that the wage law will cost each California location $250,000 a year, or about as much money as they make before noon on a Monday. Characterizing it as a devastating financial blow, according to a memo. So we've covered now you could be for the minimum wage or against it. There's legit arguments against it. I'm for it. I'm for the minimum wage.
I know it doesn't devastate fast food
but
franchises.
I know it doesn't devastate anybody. And we've actually done stories at this show where the guy who has that soft pretzel place that it's in a California franchise.
Wetzel's?
And he said that, I used to be against the raising of the minimum wage. He goes, but the weird thing is every time they raise the minimum wage, my sales go up. That's because people who buy your product have more fucking money to go spend and buy your product. And so he finally realized that.
How do you even sell this lie after the minimum wage now, $20? When it first came out, what was it? Not even $3?
Yeah.
So how the hell have they managed to raise it this much?
With all these businesses not going out of business.
It's called inflation. So everybody should be fucked on inflation except fucking Panera Bread.
Chipotle Mexican Grill has said it's considering a price increase to offset the extra expense. You think Michael Cosmo or Michelle Cosmo, Jerry Seinfeld's neighbor, the head of the National Restaurant Association, told an industry conference last year that everyone's scratching their heads about the bread exemption.
They haven't put it together yet?
She described the provision as an example of why this is great. Example of why her organization's members should develop political connections to seek better legislative outcomes.
Wow. Gavin Newsom, everyone, Bill Maher's favorite. He would vote for that guy in a second. He's hoping he'll replace Biden.
So do you see what they're admitting? What you do is, if you're a rich person who owns businesses, you schmooze with politicians and then you build relationships. You know how you build relationships? You give them money. That's how you build relationships, and that's how you get carve-outs.
Why is she even writing this down like they haven't known this for thousands of years?
Right. Well, I've been telling people.
You know what you do?
You try to corrupt some
good with the leaders, and then you make them. You get cut.
Wait a minute.
This woman makes
Slow down, Professor. What do I do?
Oh, we got women in the boardroom to come up with these ideas.
You may be celebrating or you may be lamenting the bakery exemption, she said, but remember, all of that comes through relationships.
That's what's by the way, that's what fascism's called. Kids with blue hair out there. It's not taking your kids to a drag show.
That's right.
It's this shit.
This is fascism.
When the government works with a goddamn bread company. Yes. Unbelievable.
In early 2021, the California legislature considered a bill to address what a lawmaker called the abuse, low pay, few benefits, and minimum job securities that workers faced. The legislation was designed to give employees a role in... So they built this council. We covered this also.
Yeah.
So there's this council in California that's made up of like people from workers, fast food workers, from like, and then some of the franchisees, the owners, and maybe even a government appointed official or two or something like that. And they're on some kind of council, and they're supposed to come up with wages and workplace standards, right? So, first of all, I still don't understand why it's so hard for unions to unionize with fast food. Now, I understand that the companies have all these tactics to break unions, right? I
Mhm.
learned that over at the Young Turks when they were breaking their union. But no, I mean, they really do. But still, you would think there's so much money in fast food or union organizing that they now
I know why.
Starbucks. It's happening at Starbucks.
Yes, because Starbucks is okay. Look, it's the same as like how come Canada is allowing the Fourth Reich right now, and they're not doing the people that live there not doing anything because the fighters move here. The people that would be smart enough to think about this aren't taking a low-paying fast food job generally.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so what are they like?
But
This is
I'm
what I always
talking about
hated,
no.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, Kurt, why don't the union organizers go in and organize these work? You don't have to be.
It's like herding cats. What are you gonna do? The people.
Is that
look,
what you're saying?
back in the day when they go? I used to hate this on Fox News. They would always
Because
do
nobody
this.
aspires to those jobs. They always think they're going to get another
You're
job.
supposed to think of it as you're a kid working for the summer, no matter how old you are.
It's a restaurant job.
Yeah,
That's
but
how you should look at
it's-
it.
Nobody looks at it like that.
If you work at
Yeah.
Taco Bell, or if you work at KFC, or if you work at Chick-fil-A, you're working a restaurant job. That's
You know what'll
that's a
cause it?
restaurant job.
Here's what'll cause it. If it's the kind of job where a huge amount of people have to earn a living from this job. See, once it goes from this is a teen's job till you get to real job, once it becomes enough people's real job, then you'll see. But it wasn't for the longest time.
Well, it is now, though. Here, so let's come to me. So
That's why this is coming up.
So this council, it was supposed to set wages and workplace standards, among other changes. That would raise costs for owners such as Flynn, the guy from Panera, who has made himself into the largest restaurant franchisee in the United States, if not in the world.
Well, not with this
This
bullshit.
guy.
If he has
According to
pay more.
Sharp Sheets, it says that Panera Bread franchises make $2.6 million cost and profits.
No.
It says 22 cost and profits, 2.6 million.
No.
Let me see.
No.
No.
You mean per store?
Oh, is it a collective? Let's see.
I'm looking.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Sorry.
you're reading.
I think
He's
you're
from
right.
San Francisco, this Flynn guy.
So this guy turned a handful of Applebee branches into an empire with $4.5 billion in sales, including 2,600 location brands such as Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and Wendy's. So he owns a bunch of different. So he's a big. Based on his company's website, his California restaurant chain holdings consists only of Applebee's, which as a sit-down restaurant isn't subject to the fast food wage law, and Panera. No shit. Flynn, well, they get tips at Applebee's,
Right.
so that's the difference. Flynn is worth at least $1.1 billion, according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Flynn attended the same high school as Newsom. There it is.
yeah.
In the suburbs outside of San Francisco, the future franchising mogul served as student body president as a senior, the same year Newsom played basketball as a freshman. Over the years, Flynn's donations to Newsom's political campaigns have included $100,000 to fight off a recall effort and $64,000 to support his reelection in 2022. That's got nothing to do with it.
Oh, wait. Go back. Tell that chick to write that down. That's probably
Write
one of the
that
ways
down.
to build a
That's
relationship.
build a relationship?
Yeah.
Jesus. He's been known to tout his relationship with Newsom, according to people familiar with the matter, with one saying the fast food entrepreneur has said he can even reach the governor via text.
I should hope so.
I bet.
If I'm paying that kind of money to keep you from getting recalled.
A business connection goes back to 2014 when Flynn acquired a Napa Valley resort managed by Newsom's hospitality company. Newsom, oh, no shit.
Bill Maher
This
loves
is so corrupt.
Bill Maher, I know. I love
Newsom,
that
who
about
was
him. He's
then
one of these guys, these pieces of shit guys that I love. Me, Bill Maher.
Newsom, who was then serving as California's lieutenant governor, reported an undisclosed amount of income from Flynn's company that year. I wonder how much was undisclosed.
Well, don't report it at all then.
So Newsom signed the fast food wage bill into law in September of 2022. That version of the measure set the stage for minimum pay to rise to $22 an hour at chains more than 100 locations across the U.S. But it included the exemption for establishments that sold bread.
Okay, if your establishment sells bread and you were student council president at my high school, then you are exempt.
But this has nothing to do with
Yeah.
corruption. It also defined what counts as bread according to a federal law. That
Nice.
food it excludes bagels and croissants.
Yeah. Wow.
Another win for Panera. The exemption meant so Einstein Bagels doesn't get a cutout.
Beat it, Einstein.
The exemption meant bakeries were also off the hook on industry standards that could have been established by a fast food council with authority to set rules, blah, 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 blah. Newsom and the SEIU, okay, so that's enough.
He declined to say who wrote the provision. Take a wild fucking guess who wrote the provision.
Newsom and the SEIU declined to discuss who wrote the provision. Who do you fucking think wrote this provision?
I'm guessing a gay assistant at the Newsom office. Like all political things are written by a gay assistant. This too.
Open records requests filed with the governor's office were repeatedly denied. So again, this is fascism. This is the government, and
it's redacted for 60 years. Yeah. The Panera Bread deal. We can't know about the RFK, JFK killings. Panera Bread. So vaccine test results.
And the guy who wrote the bill, this guy Chris Holden, California Assembly member, he said he didn't know how that exemption got in.
Did you channel it like one of those?
He did. This guy's
would you have like a Ouija board?
Look, I'm just a retired businessman living on a pension. I don't know.
I don't think it's fair to speculate on what.
Literally, he says, we don't know how that came about. His Holden's chief of staff said by phone.
I fell asleep, and when I woke up, the bill was done.
It was done.
You ever see the elves and the shoemaker fairy tale? It was like that.
Panera appears to be the largest chain by number of locations in California and countrywide to benefit from the exemption. Other restaurants such as Paris Baguette and Great Harvest Bread Company also appear to qualify for the carve-out, although everything's unclear. Fast food chains can't just start baking and selling bread now to get the exemption. They had to have been doing so by September 15th of last year.
This is the joke I'm making. They had to make it really specific for just Panera Bread and maybe that baguette place, but that's great.
So here's Gavin Newsom says Panera not exempt from California minimum wage law. This is from
starting now.
229.
So that's from February 29th, but now we
well, he is a piece of shit.
So your latest
order.
Is that?
Wow.
What does it say now? What's the latest?
Well, the latest was that they had gone ahead and said, "Oh no, we've got a lot of pushback. We're going to go ahead. We're not going to be exempt."
So they're not going to put the carve out in the bill?
Well, I don't know the bill, but Flynn said that he's going to go ahead and match the prices because they want to retain qualified employees.
Oh, okay.
And the
he wants to maintain his relationship with Gavin, and maybe Gavin might be president
and then
too.
What was interesting is Flynn had said earlier that. Let me look.
So here. Newsom is saying that, and so in this article, Newsom says no, they're not exempt. California's minimum wage is 16. Okay. According to the report by Bloomberg News, the bread and bakery exemption to law came from Newsom himself and would benefit billionaire Greg Flynn, who owns more than 20 Panera restaurants in the state that has donated to Newsom's campaigns. Alex Stack, a spokesperson for Newsom, told The Hill that Newsom and Flynn never met about the bill, and the story is absurd.
I'm sure that's all. Look, that's all true. They probably didn't meet. They had their people work it out.
That's right.
And the story is absurd. Doesn't mean it's not true. It's just fucking absurd how Gavin Newsom runs this state.
The governor's legal team believes that Panera Bread is not exempt from the law. To be exempt from the minimum wage law under the bakery exemption, restaurants must produce bread on site. Newsom's office said a chain bakery such as Panera, they mix the dough at an off-site location and then they ship it to the... But no one's asking them to explain why you would give this exemption in the first fucking place. Why would Newsom's office ever put... Oh, it's different because you have to... If you bake it on site, why did you decide...
So no one's benefiting from this?
So why did you decide to put this exemption in the first place? What is the specialness of baking bread?
On site.
On site. So now the latest.
How much you want to bet he didn't know that they don't bake it on site? How much you want to bet the thing that they carved out for Panera actually doesn't even fucking bake it on site?
They don't even do. Well, they mix it off site.
So when he said that he'd have to retain, his employees and everything, in a previous statement, he said, Flynn implied that the company would be pressured to raise wages anyways, even if it was exempt from the minimum wage, because their competitors would be forced to raise them.
But now they're going to go out of business because they have to raise wages.
I thought everybody's going to go out of business. And so why pressure for the carve-out in the first place?
I have a question.
It's exactly what I said. So if you worked at Panera and they did get that carve-out, wouldn't you immediately quit and go get a job at a Chick-fil-A or a Burger King or somewhere? Because I'm pretty sure you could get those jobs.
Okay, was the president of China coming to visit Panera Bread? That's why we did this. I'm trying to understand it.
Hey, come see us live on tour in Los Angeles, Palm Springs, Stockholm, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Berlin, Copenhagen, Oslo, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, right outside Pittsburgh, El Paso, and San Antonio, Texas. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.